Political correctness, clever mechanism and weapon of the enemies of God. The wedge they drive in again and again between men and God and the connecting rod, Christ. The most politically incorrect man of all time, the man whom the enemies of God slew and killed more men for in the history of martyrdom. Nail him down to dead wood, watch the tree of history blossom forth and flurry, waves of good. Greed grows, mounts, sickens the church. Many a century is vexed with the question, is the church still of the elect, still the body of Christ, still house of the bread and the blood, still the remnant? Reformers corner her, she relents, falls back into her human ways again. Renaissance, rinse and repeat. The old dance and play of man between holiness and worldliness, flesh and spirit. Well, the maneuverers and usurers watch and learn. Shrewd, the lessons sheer and clear, they hear it. Drive a wedge in, use the corruption in the church against the pious-hearted, divorce them from the heart, the mother, the faith. Scatter the remnant into endless fragments, ratify and decatechize, and confirm the splintering with acts that cannot be undone. Dissolve the lingua franca, Latin tongue that holds the nations together. Seize the wealth and turn it over to the princes. Free the nuns and sell them to the highest bidder. Make the scattered flocks weak before the princes, make the churches national, in bondage to secular power, so that every scattered Babel tongue and its state churchmen must now bow before and solemnize the wars of the barons, the princes and usurers of nations. Christianity sundered, the body of Christ broken again, shame, face down in shame for what they did. Now the peoples, defenseless, pushed off their land is spoiled like the church before her. The nations rage, Anglos ride the waves out, commoners made wage slaves, pushed off their freeholds. They ride the waves to greener pastures and new worlds, break the natives, import slaves from new lands, where Christ's word never heard. Europe fills with her own teeming peoples, the pressure mounts, the royals fall. The ancient regime makes its bed, loses its heads to the guillotines, sharpened, quick, and financed by the Anglo spirit, and the usurer cash box. Revolution runs through the continent. The gates are opened much like centuries before, when the gates were opened to the Moors. The gates are opened, the people divided, defenseless, poor, disgorged of their land, relentless, uncompensated, their hate razor-edged, bubbling over, the proletariat steams and stews, ready to skewer any enemy with wealth to score, in drooling dreams and waking drama, old pressure-cooked usurers, emancipated, hate in their eyes too, jaded and wise, used before, now conspire, and size up their lesser brethren, despised, comprise a revolutionary mass amassing, stewing, boiling over a morass, to be led by astuter ones. The first wedge against the Lord, capital theft deplorable. The second wedge against the Lord, wretched and forlorn, proletariat to gorge itself too on wealth looted back. The Orthodox East eats a bitter pill, Tsar's blood spills, defeated, a prison camp nation rises up. In the West, the nations most freed from the bosom of the Church, England and Germany, lurch towards self-destruction, destroy each other, and America helps. The peace that comes, misery, the terms imposed, perfidy, turn the Germans worse than when the Kaiser ruled, now brews dregs worse than beer up in beer halls. That land of poets, artists, and pleasant fools takes up a red banner, different from the hammer and sickle one looming in the east, reconstitutes its power, looks east at the monster, looks west at capitals, golden chains on offer and bombs, raises the banner against the Lord to fight the world on its own terms. To the south, the fasces sign aligns with the hooked cross. The capitalists and nationalists are facing off. The communists, other jaw closing in, union, the two joint hinged jaws close, devour the continent. Now the wedge against the Lord decides. The people, workers, the working classes. Unreliable, discard them, discard labor. Too unreliable, grind them down, side with capital. Wrap up the colonies, roll them up. Open the doors again, like to the Moors again as before, this time to the former colonies, wretched, rejected, resentful of their victimhood. The wedge, they raise the old slaves, Yankee, freed, against their former masters, then against their liberators too, seed to deconstruct northern cities built by Catholics like those that raised the fascist banner and the blood-red fane, After war, the Holy Land is captured, the flag planted, blood waters the land, Jerusalem in steel, blood and iron, blood and soil congeal. Blood waters the soil, war in the Holy Land. The left is cracked, Trotskyite scatter, turn on their former project monstrous, now fallen into the hands of the steel man, moved to prop up the new blood state. Drop labor, drop the working masses, not long after. Drop the black man, too, now turned bitter nationalist, used up for his purposes. Raise the next wedge against the Lord. Deviancy, formerly ignored, now implored to discord, disconnection, anger, and resentment against their own culture, to which they never felt animosity before. Now their shrill cries raised, naked, screaming, shrieking. What a storm of anger hidden behind seemingly inoffensive faces. Who next to ally with the enemies of the Lord? To drive a wedge again once more between the people and the God and the rod, between the Christ. The only peace, the only answer ever known, ever coming, the blood price for all our wrongs, the only way back to the Lord. Who next to raise against him? What next wedge to raise the bridge and razor wire high the fence?